Go tell Aunt Rhody. Go tell Aunt Rhody. Go tell Aunt Rhody that everybody's dead.
Welcome to episode 10 of the Cult of Dangerous ASMR podcast. You heard me correctly. Episode 10. We've actually been doing this so long that we made it to double digits, and we still don't have a fan base yet. Anyways, my name is Steven MovieBuff 3000, and here is my co-host, Ira Boggle.
Hello.
Today, we will be reviewing the not as much talked about Yandere Witch series. And I'm only calling it Yandere Witch series because every other episode has a different title. So even the playlist is called just Yandere Witch. Even just the playlist is called Yandere Witch. So, of course, you guys know how this formula is. We will pimp out Dangerous as shit. We will talk about the 2 recent episodes that came out, and we will review the series. Next week we will be covering the werewolf, and the week after that we will be covering the entire crossover, and then after that we don't know because we only think of the short terms. We're surprised we made it to episode 10 actually.
All right, pimp time. First and foremost, obviously, I'm assuming if you're watching this podcast, any of our 5 viewers, you already know about Dangerous YouTube, which is kind of the main base of operation, so to speak. So you should go subscribe to that. And then her next base of operation is Patreon, where you can get special Patreon exclusives, including just random stuff she posts on Wednesdays, and then not safe for work editions of things, and just other stuff whenever she feels like posting it. And then the kind of third base of operation is this very Discord where Steven and I, well, not this exact server, but Discord, where there is a Dangerous based server and you can hang out with all the fans, talk to them, script, etc. And even Dangerous herself joins us for weekly chat. So if you want to talk to Dangerous herself, you better join the Discord. Like, do it for her if you won't do it for us. And the next is Twitter, Dangerous's Twitter, though that one admittedly is really more of like a secondary update base where she just every time she uploads a YouTube audio will say, hey, this is on YouTube now. Though every once in a while she will tweet about something else, so maybe it's worth a look. And then most recently is her Redbubble, where she's been selling merch, and you should definitely get it. I've got myself a few shirts, they're very cool. But yeah, that's done pimping.
Now on to the reviews of the newer episodes. So first we have Girlfriend Whispers, Sweet Affirmations. Oh wait, I think I added a comma that wasn't supposed to be in there. Girlfriend Whispers, Sweet Affirmations. So this is another just purely comfort audio that Dangerous has made. She's made quite a few of these. These don't really have like any plot. It's just basically just an entire audio dedicated to comforting you as a girlfriend or something of the sort. I feel like she's been doing a lot of these lately because she had 3 audios in a row where they just made you miserable. So she's trying to undo that. And then the next one after that also makes you probably feel miserable towards the end. But we will get to that wonderful gem in a moment. So what do you think of this audio, Boggle?
I, like Steven said, I enjoyed it because it is another one of the comfort types which are very sweet to listen to. Because yeah, I think even Dangerous herself has joked about that in the descriptions of these audios, is basically using the sweetness to balance out the sourness of her more aggressive audio. So yes, this is another girlfriend audio, and is just basically her comforting you and telling you you're awesome and wonderful despite what you may think. And so it's an enjoyable listen for sure. I thought it was really nice, and I liked the whispering.
I probably like this a little bit less than you, and it's more just because like surprisingly these aren't my things, even though I'm Mr. like, oh, I like light stuff, I like cuddling stuff. I still prefer it to have like a source of fantasy in it. Because it really helps me like get lost in like the roleplay environment. So when it's like something like, or when it's like comedic or farcical, I can like laugh at it and enjoy it that way. So when it's like a bit more real, it's kind of a bit harder for me to get into. And
we
this
all
one
know
was,
that IRL we're single and lonely, so I
yeah.
understand.
So it kind of takes away the fun aspect for me because I'm just like, well, I know this isn't real. I know Dangerous isn't really my girlfriend. So
Honestly,
so
same. I won't lie. Like, as much as I love the comfort audios, it's really more because I like what they mean symbolically. That she is, because even again, like, yeah, obviously Dangerous is not her girlfriend's, but like all the words are true, and I think they're very sweet that she takes the time and effort to make stuff like this for us. Because even if it's not on an individual personal level, it's a nice gesture. But like Steven just said to me, yeah, I'm never able to get immersed in these audios because there's that like almost dissonant reality and fantasy clash where it's like it's too realistic for me to feel like it's fantasy. So when I hear terms like "I'm your girlfriend," it's like, no, you're not. I'm single, and that kind of ruins
it's
it. So I actually
yeah.
understand. So honestly, the way I enjoy these is to imagine like characters that I really like being in this role play instead of me. So I'm like a third person observer while Dangerous is one character and the listener is another. Like, say for example you've got character A and character B from this popular TV show and you think they're cute together. Well, imagine them in this role play instead of yourself and Dangerous. That's how I listen to these because yeah, in the same vein, I can't take these seriously personally, but if I view them as if it were happening between someone else, I find it a lot cuter and more romantic, and I'm like, this gives me so many good ideas for writing fluffy romantic scenes. I like it. And again, like I said, I just find the notion and the spirit behind them very sweet, even if I personally am like, this is so unrealistic. It's not immersive, which is nothing on Dangerous. That's just me. Because, like Steven said, yeah, it's too real, and that ruins the fantasy. So we can't really get immersed. Whereas with like something more fantastical or story based, that's easier to dive into.
Yeah. So kind of going off what you were saying, it's much I get much more comfort out of listening like things like the Centaur audio or like the Cuddles with the Neko or the Cuddles with Alpha, like or the Fox Goddess I listen to a lot, even though she's a straight up yandere. I get much more comfort out of listening from comforting audios with like a form of like character where there's like a level of fantasy, because like you're saying, when it's too realistic, it's kind of hard for me to like get into like the role playing part. I mean, it probably says a lot that my favorite comforting audio that she's ever did is the humming and head pats, because I guess it's because she doesn't really talk in that one. It's something more I can just relax to, as opposed if she was talking to me, where it's like, I know you're not really talking to me. So yeah. But that being said, like there is nothing wrong with this audio. I think I might have I think one thing I might have listened to it a little too loud, so the whispering was getting on my, it was like hurting my ears. Probably would have been better if headphones turned down halfway instead of my laptop turned up all the way. But like I was saying, there's nothing wrong with this audio at all. It does exactly what it's supposed to. And if you really do enjoy Dangerous's comfort audios and you want to hear her talk about how great you are for 20 minutes, then I definitely recommend giving this a listen to. Okay. Next we have a wonderful little audio called A Visit from the Tickle Monster. Now I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, what the hell is this? And what am I in for? Oh boy, you're in for a treat. This is definitely on my top 10 after listening to it twice. I don't know if you rank it the same, but I fucking love this audio. Hold
I
on, let
think
me
it's
try that
cute, but
again.
I'm gonna let Steven review it first because he sounds like he's dying to.
So it's so freaking cute, but it's also really creepy, which honestly could just be the tagline for Dangerous's channel.
Cute
Um,
and creepy.
it's such a dumb idea, yet she like takes it so seriously, and so it works better than you think. Like I know like people are gonna listen to this and like this sounds really dumb, but one, that's kind of the point, and two, Dangerous knows how to do satire and parody, where you're supposed to actually take the thing you're doing with 100% seriousness and not like purposely try to make it funny. Um, but it has a lot of really good creepy overtones to it that just get worse and worse until you get to the ending. The last few minutes, like I was kind of just laying down, relaxing, listening to it, and then as soon as it gets to a certain point in the end, my eyes just shut open, and I was literally like not having like an anxiety attack or anything, but my heart was freaking pumping. Um, I also feel like it's a really good spiritual successor to the Yandere Doll series, where like Dangerous mixes both like a cutesy voice with like a very dark and scary type of voice. But yeah, I really love this.
Okay, so I was going off of first things first. What I want to address is what Steven said. Honestly, I take sometimes the best dangerous audios are the ones that seem the most insane. Because think about it, like the Yandere elevator. You look at that title and you go WTF, but it was actually phenomenal. And same deal, where you look at the Tickle Monster and you're like, the heck? But you listen to it and it's really good because honestly, all reception has been positive and all of it's deserved. Because if you see, it was written by Kansu, who's a good friend of mine. He's a great dude, great writer. And this was definitely like, when I saw that he wrote this, I was like, oh, this is going to be good. I already know it. And then listening to it, it was like, yep, it was good. I told you. Because it really was. Like, you look at the title and you think it's going to be a wacky premise, and it kind of is, but like, it's so good. And it's not even just because of Dangerous, because that is definitely the part of it. Like, the plot is basically that as a child, you had the Tickle Monster hiding in your bed, in your closet, etc., etc. And she would, basically visit you every night and tickle and tease you and scare you a little. And then for some unexplained reason, she kind of went away for a while, and now she's back, and you are an adult. And because of that, like, yeah, obviously it's implied to have a bit of a dirty undertone, but for the most part, it's more her just saying, like, you're still you, but you're all grown up now, and I'm ready to come back and play. And because you're all grown up, we can try new things. So yes, again, the suggestiveness is there, but mostly I just like that idea of like this quote unquote childhood, like not friend, but this childhood entity coming back now that you're an adult, and like what's gonna happen now that this has changed. Like, she's back and you're different. What's up? And the concept of the Tickle Monster was just kind of funny and interesting because I mean, we've all had, because my dad would jokingly call himself the Tickle Monster when he would tickle me and my sister. So it's like, yeah, nostalgia vibes too. And then, like Steven mentioned, and as many of the comments will mention, the cute and creepy vibe comes from the fact that even though the Tickle Monster starts off like, hey, you remember me from childhood? I used to tickle you every night. You're so cute. There's also like a new sinister vibe where she's like some sort of demon that wants to yandere you, basically. And it's like, oh my god, when she switches back and forth. Because the voice change is not as drastic as Emmy from the Doll series, but it's definitely noticeable. It's like, oh my god. So I see why everyone's getting that vibe, and I think it's really cool. I love the way it switches back and forth. Because if you think about it, it's sort of what Kansu did in his last audio, because he's the one who wrote the spider one. And even though she maintained like a sickly sweet voice throughout the same thing, it felt similar with this character who is like sadistic and means you harm, but is like so cheerful about it. And actually, speaking of spiders, Kansu loves spiders, so I'm not even remotely surprised he threw in a reference in the Tickle Monster audio, because this Tickle Monster can apparently grow as many arms as she pleases, and at one point she's got 8, so of course she calls herself a spider. I was like, we can never get enough spiders if it's Kansu. But yes, I really did enjoy this audio, because not only is it an interesting concept with like the implication that it could get a continuation, but it's just so well performed, and Dangerous's part is just so interesting and fascinating and really cool.
I kind of do hope this remains a one shot, just so it can kind of stick out as like, oh yeah, the Tickle Monster audio. I feel like everything that like needed to be in this episode was in this one, with like just the setup, the character, and then the very creepy ending. But yeah, I don't want to like just stand here all day and just praise Kansu and Dangerous's performance, because I don't need people to get huge egos. I'm kidding.
Steven's ego is big enough. Thank you very much. He doesn't want any competitors.
Oh, that's so not true. I'm miserable. Anyways, like happened. You took a very silly idea,
and you totally rocked it, dude. That was amazing. All of us love it. It was incredible.
And now to the main event of today's episode, the Yandere Witch series. And like I said in the beginning, I'm calling it the Yandere Witch series because at first it's called Charmed by the Yandere Witch, and then it's Apprentice to the Yandere Witch, and then Empowered, and then I forget what the last one is called.
I think Partnered to a Yandere Witch, and then Confessions of a Yandere Witch.
Yeah. And this one's a lot shorter than most of the crossover series. This one's only 7 episodes, and I feel like this is like a hidden gem of Dangerous, because I don't see anybody ever talk about this, like ever. Like, people will mention like, yeah, the witch too. It's like, yeah, I love the crossover series with the werewolf and the vampires and oh yeah, the witch too. Because I actually really enjoyed this series. Normally I'm the type of person who it's like when it gets all lovey-dovey like from the get-go, I'm like a little bit like but I mean it makes sense because she is a witch and she's basically like doing a spell on you to make sure you fall in love with her. So I can kind of buy it a little bit more. So the fact that it's like lovey-dovey from pretty much the beginning didn't really bug me all that much. But I think the witch is actually a really cool character, and I like her interactions with us. And I like fantasy and magic and stuff like that. So kind of like seeing a whole series dedicated to that is really cool. And I like the story progression of it. What do you think about this series?
I freaking love it. I honestly agree with the hidden gem thing because, to be honest, I won't lie. I used to be one of those people who were like, yeah, the vampire and the werewolf and the witch. Because I will say, I feel like it is not only is it the shortest of the crossover series, but it feels like the quietest slash calmest. It retains fairly the same tone throughout, and not much happens in terms of like for the most part you just stay in her hut. Whereas with the wolf, you're all over the forest and you see a development between you and her. Like you go from being her, the werewolf, a captive to a friend, and even the countess, where it's like for the most part you're stuck in her castle or wherever she lives. There's a moment where you run away and then you're brought back, and so the witch, the fact that for the most part it's literally just you and her and the hut, I can kind of understand it. Like I'm not saying the series is boring, but for lack of a better word, I can see why it would come off that way compared to the other two, and because it is so much more quiet than the other ones. But again, like Steven so rightly said, it really is a hidden gem because listening to it again for the second time, which I did today, I did have a new, because I already enjoyed it the first time around, but I feel like I had a new appreciation having to re-listen to it. And also, I will say it's funny. Even if you look at the witch is definitely the least popular of the trio, it's kind of her fault the crossover happens. Like I'm sure, like this is not a spoiler because this part has been out for a year now. The forest is basically under attack by a necromancer, and the only reason he has the power he does is because the witch made a bargain with him. So she's literally the only reason we have a crossover. But what I enjoyed about it was kind of just the witch's character, like her personality, how she's kind of like old timey, old fashioned. Like you can hear it in the way she speaks, and it becomes even more apparent in the actual crossover when, like, for example, you've got Venus in the same episode, and Venus is very vulgar and snobby, but she talks in a more modern way, whereas the witch uses older phrases or expressions, or just there's something different about it. But also, even though her story is kind of cliche like the classic, she's a witch, so everybody distrusted her and ran her out, and now she's kind of bitter against the world. I kind of like the time where she would go on these in a lot of the episodes on monologues about how she was basically a victim of fear. Like the villagers would see her and know that she's a witch and immediately start thinking that she was some kind of monster, and they would judge her before they even knew her. And even if she would try to do good things to help them, they would still always be terrified because in the back of their minds they were always reminded, oh yeah, no matter how sweet this lady is, she could still kill all of you without even trying. And she just had a lot of just really good lines. Like it's this sense of God, I wish I wish I'd taken notes so I could actually quote this properly, but that's just what maybe I'll come back to later because I don't want to talk for too long. But what I just enjoyed kind of her character's backstory and her like bitterness against humanity for mistreating her and being terrified of her, even though she'd never really done anything to warrant that terror. But then the reason it almost becomes ironic is, yeah, she finds you and decides that you're going to be her soulmate. So she captures you, puts you in her love potion, and she acts very lovey-dovey, and you are implied to reciprocate because of the potion. But then later on in the series, when it seems to start to wear off to some degree, and your character becomes a little bit more defiant with her, every time you kind of like disagree with her, she immediately snaps back into a much nastier person. Like not violent, but anytime you don't act lovey-dovey back, she goes away from being soft and sweet, more like, don't define me, stop being so ungrateful. And it's like,
I
oh
have
my
a theory
god,
about that.
Jesus. Oh yeah, one sec. See, this is what I mean. Steven's got a lot to say too, so I'll try to wrap this up. But not only that, but more. That's actually what I appreciated is that the listener is implied to fight back, like not physically. Like he never tried to run away the way the characters in the vampire did, but that yeah, when things start to go down and the necromancer's powers first start manifesting, you keep seeing stuff. But she's like, no, you're not seeing anything. It's nothing. Don't pay any mind to it. But of course, you keep pushing and saying, no, I think there's something there. Let me go see. And I'm like, yes, this person who's kind of fighting back a little bit and, demanding to be treated better than just a love puppet. Because again, I get it. She treats you better than the werewolf or vampire, but it's just the sense of like, it's not consensual. You're under the effects of basically a magical drug. So I kind of appreciate whenever the listeners imply to try to, basically snap the witch into place and be like, listen, you've been nice, yeah, but only because I'm under the influence of a potion. Let me have some autonomy. Tell me what's going on. Let me take a look. What are you trying to hide? So I do appreciate that. But also, yeah, underneath, I'm about to let Steven go on his ramble, is, yeah, whenever the witch gets into a more, because it makes sense. Like, I don't know how old she is, but she's implied to, like, she says she's immortal and she's been around for a long time. I get why she's so jaded and bitter, because she even says that the listener is the first person to melt her heart in a long time. So even though we see a soft sweetness, there was a lot of ice there before. And whenever it kind of like returns, whenever she gets mad at you, it's just like, God, this is a woman who's seen too much and is really depressed and terrified, and it's so sad. But the way she deals with it is by being very controlling and threatening and ominous, and it's kind of cool. And this is what I mean when I say, like, Dangerous is so good at making characters that are sympathetic, but not too sympathetic, where you still feel bad for them, but you can still be disgusted by their actions. And it's not a total case of, oh, poor sweet cinnamon baby Uwu who did nothing wrong. It was like, you look at, because again with the Countess, who's like, yeah, she's also suffered a lot and is secretly terrified of losing you, and it's like something that makes you want to hug her. But then you remember she's also still really controlling and monstrous about the way how she goes about dealing with her fear, that when that kicks in, you're just like, oh no, wait, no, you're still a bad person, I don't like you. I feel like the witch has the same vibe, even if the violent side is to a much lesser degree than the Countess. But I just freaking love how Dangerous writes these characters. Like, it's so, the characterization is amazing. Because like I said, I like the fact that they don't remain complete and utter hate sinks, but she doesn't totally woobify them and make it so that you're like, oh, they did nothing wrong. It's like, no, you still hate them, even though you've started to feel genuinely bad for them. It's awesome. Anyway, your turn, Steven. I could go on for hours.
Going off what you were saying, my theory is basically it's not that the potion's wearing off. I just think the listener he's getting more powerful because she's like teaching him her ways, like at first basically to be like an alchemist. But then it gets to the point where she actually gives him power. And I purposely have not re-listened to the crossover episodes. They pretty much end when the series ends, so like I don't know if like things like this get confirmed in that. My knowledge of the crossover episodes isn't that great because I only listen to them from the werewolf's point of view, and so I was like, I don't know what the fuck's going on.
I mean,
But
tangents aside, I have listened to the crossover episodes just because I'm like, wait a minute, these stories flow together. I need to listen to at least part one of the crossover so I can kind of get what happened. But anyways, yeah.
But yeah, tangents aside, I mean, this series is old, so I do apologize for spoilers, but halfway through the series, she actually empowers you with magic, with her magic, thereby kind of making you not necessarily a witch, I guess. But it's from that and from like kind of like the confidence he's gaining in the relationship that I think he's just becoming stronger to the point to where like just something like a love potion doesn't really affect him that much. It's kind of like how like in a tabletop RPG, like the higher level you get, the better your will save, better like your saves to your will get. So like lower level spells won't affect you as much. So I think he's just becoming more powerful and assertive in the relationship. That it's kind of counteracting the love potion. And I also like to believe that like maybe the love potion ran out a while ago and he just actually does love her. And so because the potion's kind of gone, he's his own man now. I could be overthinking this. Fucking Dangerous could have just been like, I'm sure if she ever listens to this, she'll be like, yeah, that's it, sure. I don't know. But like I'm sure there's no answer, and that's kind of the beauty of like this being a one-sided thing, because we can kind of make our own story about like how we are in this. But yeah, that's what I like to believe is the character's becoming stronger in terms of like magical power and also in his own like will and confidence.
Okay, so I vaguely, while Steven was talking, I was totally ignoring him to try to remember what I was gonna say in my long rambling, and I finally remembered a little bit. So what I was saying before is that yes, the witch is supposed to be like this very pensive, thoughtful, intelligent, wise character, not just in the sense that she knows potions and magic, but that just what she's been through and her incredibly old age and how she's been treated. She has several long, like seemingly random monologues just about how she's been treated, which it's obvious it still affects her, even if she claims it doesn't. But I remember like there are a few lines in there that really were just so amazing, and I feel like applicable to a lot of things in real life. So even though they're somewhat cliche, I thought they were kind of brilliant. Maybe I'm biased, but like I remember once she was saying, again, like going back to what I said earlier, she's been anywhere from good to neutral to the townsfolk, but they still continue to see her as evil just because of the way humans are usually taught to treat magic users. Um, and she says basically like all this stuff will happen, or even if she, no matter what she does or what happens, they'll find a way to vilify her because they've basically taken all these natural subconscious fears they have, and she's sort of become the face of it. Because I think she's mentioning like the fact that she's immortal and all powerful and could again easily kill them all if she wanted to. That the fears of weakness, inferiority, and death that are natural within humans, when they see her, this superior being, she basically becomes like a face to that more primal, subconscious, and abstract fear, which I thought was really good. Another one, she points out the kind of interesting fact that, like, yeah, being a witch like her is pretty awesome because she's incredibly powerful and again immortal and ageless. It's like it, but she said, kind of. I think the phrase she used, "If you're blessed by the gods, you'll be punished by people," because for her, she was born with these powers. So it's this idea that yeah, she was born special, but of course, then people are going to be jealous and wary of that, and they'll punish her for it. They'll run her out. They'll call her an ugly old hag. They'll say, "Don't trust her," even if she's been nothing but helpful. And one of the things she said is like the sense of jealousy because she was just born with these powers. So it's a sense of like, well, why though? What did she do to deserve them? Why did nobody else get them? So this, she's basically postulating that maybe some of the folks in town are kind of jealous that they weren't the ones blessed with awesome power. Well, she for some reason was, and that jealousy is manifesting in that anger of like she's different. We can't trust her. We have to get rid of her. If we don't understand it, it's probably harmful, and if it's harmful, we need to get rid of it, even if it hasn't proven harmful, because that's the way humans in real life react. But I just love that idea of hers that yeah, it does stem from jealousy where they're like, how come you got the powers? Because it was totally arbitrary. And honestly, vaguely like here, I know that I don't watch movies and I don't know anything, especially not compared to the great movie master here, but I do understand that in at least some of the DCEU films, there some of the plot points, especially like of Batman v Superman. One of the big plot points is that the world is generally distrustful of. Shut up! I know nobody liked that movie because I didn't even watch it. I just watched the cinema scenes. That's folks. That's how I watch movies. I just watch.
That's even worse.
But oh, I know that. Like Rose, to all 5 of our viewers, feel free to roast me in the comments for being that bitch who only watch movies via CinemaSins. But anyways, I
No, because
understand that
even
one of
CinemaSin sucks.
even the plot point is that the world is growing worried of Superman because of his immense power, and even though for the most part he's been a good guy, they're starting to realize, but if he wanted to, he could be the worst threat mankind's ever seen. So their first response is, let's send in someone to stop him, even though he hasn't done anything wrong yet. It's that fear of like, but what if? And the witch easily has that same parallel because she outright says, she's like, even no matter how good I am to the townsfolk, we are always all aware that I could easily end their lives. And as long as that remains a possibility, they're going to treat it as a certainty and they're going to come after me. So, anyways, like, hey guys, this part may not even make it in the podcast, and now I'm just kind of talking to Steven, but freaking, I loved the monologues in this. Even my first time through, I loved listening to her just talk about this stuff because I feel like it's so eloquent and well put. And again, it's so applicable to real life. Because obviously, this is like a fantastical version of humans hate witch because witch satanic. But I mean, honestly, there's a lot of other places this could apply to, and it was just really well said. And so many moments where I was just sitting there going, I need this on a quote, like a quote board of just everything she said about fear and distrust and being outcast and judged, and so good.
I feel like that's another thing where if you ask Dangerous, like, when you said this stuff, did you mean this? And Dangerous will just be there, like, sure. Sure. It's exactly what it could mean. But like, yeah, going off what you're saying, I really do like the monologues. I mean, technically the whole thing is all of our videos are monologues. But I
You're
do
right.
like I do like the speeches that the witch makes. Like really, if it wasn't for the fact that one, apparently she let the necromancer have power, and two, she yandere you with a love potion or a love spell. Um, by the way, if you listen to the series, kind of like the vampire series, it takes a few episodes for Dangerous to move on from cell phone to actual mic. So if like that, if sound quality kind of bugs you, like just keep with the series, okay? Just keep with it. I promise you, it's really good. All right, going back a couple of sentences. Yeah, I really do enjoy like the performances, and it's just this is I just really like this character. No, I now remember what I was saying. Sorry people, I'm an idiot. Ignore me. Um,
Yeah, just listen to me. I'll keep going.
so yeah, so other than the fact that like she yandere you with a love spell and made a deal with necromancer, she doesn't seem like a bad person at all. Like she seems very much like a very like thoughtful person that's maybe like a bit more nihilistic about the world because of how people treat her, but she doesn't seem bad at all. Which is why I really like enjoyed and got behind this character. Like I said last week, I really like it when people don't treat me like shit. I get
Cough, countess, cough.
when people don't treat me like shit. It's weird too because I prefer tsunderes over yanderes, but I think it's because the tsundere already likes me. They're just being difficult. As opposed to, I don't know if this person likes me and they're mean to me. Enough on actual opinions about my type. Um, going back to this, so like I was really able to sympathize with her when she's like explaining like kind of like her life and like how she's been treated, because she seems like she's a good person who just gets a bad rap because of her powers. Something that she probably never asked for, and like you said, she was born with.
Yeah, this series has just got so many good moments because even though that was just us talking about her monologues and speeches, yeah, because just going back through everything, the kind of simplicity of it, which is actually kind of nice, and then the listener kind of fighting back and just the setup to the crossover. There's so many good gems in this series, and I freaking love it.
Yeah, that's another thing. So I know, Boggle, I know, like you're always like, oh, like I want to fight back and stuff like that, and I agree with that too. But like, I don't. When I think of fighting back, I don't think of just simply like you try to run away. You try to run
Well, I
away,
don't
or
either.
like
I actually
you
I
stab
just
them in the
appreciate
chest to
that the
get away.
listener kept pushing the witch, saying, "What are you hiding? What are you hiding?" Because like I think there's at least 3 times when the listener is implied to ask, "Hey, what's going on?" And each time she tries to say, "Oh, it's nothing," but each time you keep asking more, and I'm like, "Yes." So and all that, but again, like going back to even what we were talking about before, that was, yeah, and every time you do act defiant, you see more of the witch's quote unquote true colors, where again, I'm like Steven, I believe that she's good at heart, but like, yeah, anytime you show any bit of defiance, she starts getting really snippy and loses all that sweetness. So I think you still remember she's a yandere at heart as well, even if she's, a yandere with good reason. She still is Yandere, and it's like the best and worst thing when you have those moments where your listener character kind of like argues with her, and she pulls the guilt trip, like, "You're so ungrateful for all the sacrifices I've made for you. Haven't I done so much for you? If it weren't for me, you wouldn't even have these powers. Why are you treating me like this?" And it's like, oh, well, I mean, to be fair, you did kidnap me. And at one point, even the listeners implied to have said, "Well, this was your choice anyways." And I just laughed because obviously you don't hear yourself speak, but she says, "Well, yes, I know it was my choice." And I was like, "Oh my god!" I was laughing at that part because I was like, it was just such a good argument that I thought was actually really well portrayed, given that it was only one person. So, as I mean, just seeing the switches between the witch's personality and the implication of how it, like, she's still a Yandere at heart even now. Actually, I will say, like, again, I know this is not supposed to be the review of the crossover, but again, I actually have listened to a couple episodes into it just to not immediately abruptly cut off where the individual series end. There's a moment when, yeah, the countess confronts the witch to ask what's going on with her thrall, and the witch says, "Yeah, I know what it feels like to worry about losing something that you love. I understand how terrifying that can be." And I'm like, that's because that's exactly what this witch has endured her whole life. and now she might risk losing it again with you because of everything that's going on. And so it's like such a really a small line, but really powerful. And especially that she's speaking to the Countess of all people, who is in the same, very similar boat, where it's like this character who acts very cold on the outside, but is secretly, genuinely in love with you and terrified that something's wrong with you, even though they won't necessarily show it. And I'm like, oh, both these characters, even though they're, the witch shows her sweetness while the Countess remains very cold, they still have very similar centers, so to speak. And I actually think it's really cool. The interaction was awesome. Okay, sorry, I'm done.
Yeah, so that was our discussion on Yandere Witch, Charmed by Yandere Witch, Apprenticed by Yandere Witch, Empowered by Yandere Witch, Confessions by Yandere Witch.
You missed one.
Buy one get one free by Yandere Witch. Whatever. I made that last one up. But it's kind of sad nobody ever talks about this series. Because I think the witch is a really good character, and I kind of regret never kind of sitting down and watching this, because I could have been defending her this whole time. Tsundere Werewolf is clearly the best, but Yandere Witch ain't that far behind. So yeah, definitely watch this series. If you're a Dangerous fan and you like her series, I recommend checking out the series. You get a lot of nice sweet moments with it. You get moments where you actually you don't bow down to her bullshit. You actually have a dangerous character where you can talk back to her. Not literally, unless you talk to your screen like I do, like a pathetic person. And yeah, it has a fun magical type of plot. Yeah, it sounds stupid. So yeah, this was very enjoyable. Would you recommend the series?
No, absolutely not. It was really boring. Don't listen to it. I'm just kidding. No, honestly, I agree with what Steven said, that a lot. I feel like both of us have these retrospective regrets where we're like, dang, if only we gotten in this series sooner, we could have brought the witch more limelight. Because again, compared to the other, actually, honestly, the crossover in total has 5 characters, because you've got I don't really count the Necromancer yet. You've got the 3 main ones, but then you've got Carmelina and Venus. So it's yeah, literally, out of the 5 people in this story, the witch is at the bottom. And again, I think it is because compared to the other 2, the witch's story is the quietest and therefore the quote unquote most boring and easiest to miss, which is why again her quote unquote approval rating is probably the lowest amongst the fans. But after listening to it a second time with new ears, it honestly, I mean, I already would have recommended it just to get the full picture of the crossover, but now I feel like I've double re-recommended it because it really is quite a great story in its own right, even if it isn't as exciting and fantastical as hunting with the werewolf or meeting Carmelina and Venus with the Countess.
That'll conclude episode 10 of the Cult of Dangerous ASMR podcast. This is Boggle.
Bye.
And then this is Steven, also saying bye. Catch you guys later. That could be the new... No, fuck, I should really...
Oh yeah, in honor of the 10th podcast episode, we finally have a proper outro. Isn't that right, Steven?
No.